Conclusion. The Glorious Revolution and earlier revolutions collectively contributed to the evolution of the modern nation-state by establishing principles of constitutional governance, sovereignty of the people, rule of law, and protection of individual rights. Each of these revolutions played a pivotal role in shaping the political, legal, and social frameworks that define the contemporary nation-state. They influenced how states are structured, how power is distributed, and how citizens' rights are protected within the state. Certainly. Here is a timeline of the significant revolutions we have discussed, presented in chronological order. Timeline of significant revolutions. 1. Dutch Revolt, 1568 to 1648. A revolt against Spanish rule leading to the establishment of the Dutch Republic and significant advances in religious tolerance and republican governance. 2. Glorious Revolution, 1688. Overthrow of King James II of England, leading to the establishment of a constitutional monarchy under William III and Mary II, and the passing of the Bill of Rights, 1689. 3. English Civil War, 1642 to 1651. Conflict between the monarchy and parliament in England, resulting in the temporary overthrow of the monarchy and the establishment of a commonwealth under Oliver Cromwell. 4. American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. The 13 American colonies struggle for independence from British rule, resulting in the establishment of the United States of America. 5. French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. A period of radical social and political upheaval in France that led to the end of the monarchy, the rise of the French Republic, and widespread social and political reforms. 6. Haitian Revolution, 1791 to 1804. A successful slave revolt against French colonial rule in Saint-Domingue, leading to the establishment of Haiti as the first independent Black republic. 7. Mexican War of Independence, 1810 to 1821, a movement that resulted in Mexico's independence from Spanish rule. 8. French Revolution of 1830, July Revolution. A revolt in France that led to the overthrow of King Charles X and the establishment of the July monarchy under Louis Philippe. 9. Revolutions of 1848, a series of interconnected revolutionary movements across Europe, including in France, the German states, the Austrian Empire, and Italy, demanding political reform and national independence. 10. Chinese Revolution, 1911. The overthrow of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of the Republic of China. 11. Russian Revolution, 1917. The Bolshevik-led overthrow of the provisional government and the establishment of the Soviet Union. 12. Cuban Revolution, 1953 to 1959. A successful armed revolt led by Fidel Castro's 26th of July movement against the authoritarian government of Cuban President Fulgencio Batista. 13. Portuguese Carnation Revolution, 1974. A peaceful coup that overthrew the Estado Novo regime in Portugal and led to the establishment of a democratic government and decolonization. 14. Spanish Transition to Democracy, 1975 to 1982. The process of democratization in Spain following the death of dictator Francisco Franco, leading to the establishment of a constitutional monarchy and democratic governance. 15. Iranian Revolution, 1979. The overthrow of the Shah of Iran and the establishment of the Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini. 16. Velvet Revolution, 1989. A peaceful protest movement in Czechoslovakia that led to the end of communist rule and the establishment of a democratic government. 17. Tiananmen Square protests, 1989. Pro-democracy protests in Beijing that were violently suppressed by the Chinese government. 18. Philippine People Power Revolution, 1986, a series of popular demonstrations that led to the overthrow of President Ferdinand Marcos and the restoration of democracy in the Philippines. 19. Hong Kong pro-democracy movements, Umbrella Movement, 2014, protests demanding democratic reforms. Anti-extradition law amendment bill protests, 2019-2020. Protests against a proposed law allowing extraditions to mainland China, leading to broader demands for democratic rights. Arab Spring, 2010 to 2012, a series of anti-government protests and uprisings across the Arab world, resulting in significant political changes in countries like Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and ongoing conflict in Syria. Conclusion. This timeline highlights the progression of significant revolutions from the 16th century to the present, showing how each contributed to the evolving concepts of governance, sovereignty, and individual rights that shape the modern nation-state. The Dutch Revolt, also known as the 80 Years' War, 1568 to 1648, was a significant conflict that led the independence of the Dutch Republic from Spanish rule. Here's an overview of the Dutch Revolt and its contributions to the concept of the nation-state. Dutch Revolt, 1568 to 1648. Background: Habsburg rule. The Low Countries, modern-day Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, were under the control of the Spanish Habsburg monarchy, led by King Philip II of Spain. Religious tensions. The imposition of Catholicism by the Spanish rulers clashed with the growing Protestant Reformation in the region, particularly Calvinism. Economic grievances. Heavy taxation and economic exploitation by the Spanish crown exacerbated local discontent. Key events. 1. Outbreak of the Revolt, 1568. Initial uprisings. The revolt began with the rebellion of the Dutch nobility and subsequent uprisings by Protestant groups. The initial phase saw the formation of resistance groups led by William of Orange. 2. Iconoclasm, 1566. Beeldenstorm. A wave of iconoclastic riots swept through the Low Countries, where Protestant mobs destroyed Catholic images and church decorations, reflecting deep religious tensions. Number 3. Duke of Alba's repression, 1567 to 1573. Council of Troubles. The Spanish response, led by the Duke of Alba, involved severe repression, including executions and harsh penalties, which further fueled resistance. 4. Union of Utrecht, 1579. Formation of the Dutch Republic. The northern provinces united in the Union of Utrecht, declaring their independence from Spanish rule and forming the basis of the Dutch Republic. 5. Act of Abjuration, 1581. Formal Declaration of Independence. The Act of Abjuration was the formal declaration of independence by the northern provinces from the Spanish crown. 6. Ongoing conflict. Prolonged war. The conflict continued for several decades with fluctuating fortunes, involving battles, sieges, and shifting alliances. 7. 12 Years' Truce, 1609 to 1621. Temporary halt. A truce provided a temporary halt to the conflict, but fighting resumed until the end of the 30 Years' War. 8. Peace of Westphalia, 1648. Official recognition. The Treaty of Westphalia officially recognized the independence of the Dutch Republic, marking the end of the 80 Years' War. Contributions to the concept of the nation-state. 1. Religious tolerance. Pluralism. The Dutch Revolt contributed to the development of religious tolerance and pluralism. The Dutch Republic became a refuge for persecuted religious minorities, including Jews, Huguenots, and others. 2. Republican governance. Decentralized republic. The Dutch Republic was a confederation of provinces with a high degree of autonomy, governed by representatives rather than a monarchy. This model influenced later republican forms of government. 3. Economic independence, commercial power. The independence of the Dutch Republic allowed it to become a major economic and maritime power, emphasizing the importance of economic self-determination and commercial interests in the nation-state. 4. Sovereignty and national identity. National consciousness. The prolonged struggle fostered a sense of Dutch national identity and the importance of sovereignty free from foreign control. 5. Influence on other revolutions. Inspiration. The success of the Dutch Revolt inspired other movements for independence and self-governance, influencing the broader development of the nation-state concept in Europe and beyond. Conclusion. The Dutch Revolt played a crucial role in shaping the modern concept of the nation-state by promoting principles of religious tolerance, republican governance, economic independence, and national sovereignty. Its successful struggle for independence from a powerful empire provided a model for other nations seeking self-determination and contributed to the evolving political landscape of Europe. Pluralism. particularly in the context of the Dutch Revolt and the subsequent establishment of the Dutch Republic, refers to the acceptance and coexistence of diverse religious, cultural, and political groups within a society. Here's a more detailed look at how pluralism emerged from the Dutch Revolt and its broader implications. Pluralism in the Dutch Republic. 1. Religious tolerance. Protestant and Catholic coexistence. The Dutch Republic was notable for its religious tolerance, particularly given the intense religious conflicts of the time. While Calvinism became the dominant faith, other Protestant denominations and even Catholicism were tolerated to a significant extent. Refuge for persecuted minorities. The Dutch Republic became a haven for religious minorities fleeing persecution elsewhere in Europe, including Jews, Huguenots, French Protestants, and Anabaptists. This influx of diverse groups contributed to the Republic's cultural and economic vitality. 2. Economic pluralism. Trade and commerce. The Dutch Republic's economy thrived on trade and commerce, attracting merchants and entrepreneurs from across Europe and beyond. The emphasis on economic freedom and open markets fostered a diverse and dynamic economic environment. Joint stock companies. Innovations such as the Dutch East India Company, VOC, and the establishment of stock exchanges reflected a pluralistic economic system where multiple stakeholders could participate and benefit. 3. Political pluralism, decentralized governance. The Dutch Republic was a confederation of provinces, each with a high degree of autonomy. Political power was not centralized, but shared among various provincial and municipal governments, promoting a form of political pluralism. Representative institutions. The States General, a representative assembly, allowed different provinces and cities to have a voice in national decision-making, embodying the principles of political pluralism. Broader implications of pluralism. 1. Influence on Enlightenment. Thought. Philosophical foundations. The Dutch experience of religious and cultural pluralism influenced Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke, who advocated for religious tolerance and the separation of church and state. Intellectual exchange. The Dutch Republic became a center for printing and publishing, facilitating the exchange of ideas and the spread of Enlightenment principles. 2. Model for modern democracies. Diverse societies. The principles of pluralism that emerged in the Dutch Republic provided a model for modern democratic societies, where the coexistence of diverse groups is seen as a strength rather than a weakness. Protection of minorities. The emphasis on protecting the rights of minorities and allowing for diverse voices in governance has become a cornerstone of democratic nation-states. 3. Economic innovation. Inclusive growth. The economic pluralism of the Dutch Republic, characterized by openness to trade and innovation, demonstrated how inclusive economic policies can lead to prosperity and growth. Global influence. The success of the Dutch economic model influenced other nations to adopt similar approaches, contributing to the development of global capitalism. Conclusion. Pluralism in the Dutch Republic, fostered by the outcomes of the Dutch Revolt, had a profound impact on the development of the modern nation-state. By promoting religious tolerance, economic freedom, and political inclusivity, the Dutch Republic set an early example of how diverse groups can coexist and thrive within a single political entity. This legacy of pluralism influenced Enlightenment thought, provided a model for modern democratic governance, and contributed to the broader evolution of inclusive and prosperous societies.
Global influence. Copy.
Pluralism, particularly in the context of the Dutch Revolt and the subsequent establishment of the Dutch Republic, refers to the acceptance and coexistence of diverse religious, cultural, and political groups within a society. Here's a more detailed look at how pluralism emerged from the Dutch Revolt and its broader implications. Pluralism in the Dutch Republic. 1. Religious tolerance. Protestant and Catholic coexistence. The Dutch Republic was notable for its religious tolerance, particularly given the intense religious conflicts of the time. While Calvinism became the dominant faith, other Protestant denominations and even Catholicism were tolerated to a significant extent. Refuge for persecuted minorities. The Dutch Republic became a haven for religious minorities fleeing persecution elsewhere. The Dutch Revolt and the subsequent establishment of the Dutch Republic had a significant global influence, impacting political, economic, and cultural developments far beyond the borders of the Netherlands. Here are some key aspects of that global influence. Political influence. 1. Model of republican governance. The Dutch Republic was one of the first modern states to adopt a republican form of government, rejecting monarchical rule in favor of a system where power was distributed among elected representatives. This model influenced later republican movements, including the American and French revolutions. 2. Constitutional developments. The principles of constitutionalism and checks and balances that emerged from the Dutch Republic inspired political thinkers and reformers across Europe. The ideas of shared governance and limiting the power of central authorities were key influences on the development of modern constitutional democracies. Number 3. Religious tolerance. The Dutch Republic's policies of religious tolerance set a precedent for other nations, demonstrating that diverse religious communities could coexist peacefully. This principle influenced the development of religious freedom in places like the United States, where the First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion. Economic influence. 1. Commercial practices. The Dutch Republic was a pioneer in developing modern commercial practices, such as joint stock companies, stock exchanges, and insurance. The establishment of the Dutch East India Company in 1602 marked the beginning of the first multinational corporation and the modern stock market. 2. Global trade networks. Dutch merchants and explorers established extensive trade networks that connected Europe with Asia, Africa, and the Americas. The global reach of Dutch trade influenced the economic development of many regions and contributed to the rise of global capitalism. 3. Banking and finance. The Dutch Republic's financial innovations, including the creation of the Amsterdam Exchange Bank, played a crucial role in the development of modern banking and finance. The concepts of central banking and international finance were significantly influenced by Dutch practices. Cultural influence. 1. Intellectual exchange. The Dutch Republic became a center for intellectual exchange and the spread of Enlightenment ideas. The relatively free press and vibrant publishing industry in the Netherlands allowed for the dissemination of new scientific, philosophical, and political ideas throughout Europe. 2. Art and science. The Dutch Golden Age saw remarkable achievements in art, science, and literature. Artists like Rembrandt and Vermeer, scientists like Christian Huygens and Antony van Leeuwenhoek, and philosophers like Baruch Spinoza made significant contributions that influenced cultural and intellectual developments worldwide. 3. Urban planning and architecture. Dutch approaches to urban planning, water management, and architecture influenced city development in Europe and beyond. The use of canals, advanced techniques for land reclamation, and the design of public buildings and spaces were models for other urban centers. Colonial influence. 1. Colonial expansion. The Dutch established colonies and trading posts around the world, including in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. These colonies became important centers of trade and cultural exchange, and Dutch colonial policies influenced the administration and economic exploitation of overseas territories. Cultural exchange. Dutch colonies facilitated cultural exchanges between Europe and other parts of the world, introducing new goods, ideas, and technologies. This exchange had lasting impacts on the cultures and economies of both the colonies and the colonizing nation. Summary. The global influence of the Dutch Revolt and the subsequent establishment of the Dutch Republic was profound. Politically, the principles of republican governance and religious tolerance set examples for later democratic movements. Economically, Dutch innovations in trade, finance, and commerce laid the foundations for modern capitalism. Culturally, the Dutch Republic was a hub of intellectual and artistic achievement that influenced the broader European Enlightenment. Additionally, Dutch colonial activities played a significant role in shaping global trade networks and cultural exchanges. The legacy of the Dutch Republic's influence continues to be felt in many aspects of modern global society. The Dutch Revolt and the establishment of the Dutch Republic served as a powerful source of inspiration for various movements and revolutions worldwide. Here's how the Dutch experience influenced other regions and revolutionary efforts. Political inspiration. 1. American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. Republican ideals. The success of the Dutch Republic's republican form of government provided a model for the American colonies seeking independence from British monarchical rule. Federalism. The decentralized political structure of the Dutch Republic, with significant autonomy for its provinces, influenced the federal system adopted by the United States. Treaty of Alliance, 1778. The Dutch support for the American Revolution, including financial and military aid, was crucial. The Netherlands was among the first countries to recognize American independence. Number 2. French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. Democratic principles. The Dutch emphasis on representative government and individual rights resonated with French revolutionaries seeking to overthrow the monarchy and establish a republic. Economic models. The commercial success and economic policies of the Dutch Republic influenced French economic reforms and the development of capitalism in post-revolutionary France. 3. Revolutions of 1848. Demands for reform. The Dutch model of a republican government inspired various revolutionary movements across Europe in 1848, where people demanded constitutional governments, national independence, and civil liberties. National identity. The success of the Dutch in establishing a distinct national identity encouraged other nationalistic movements within the multi-ethnic empires of Europe. Economic inspiration. 1. Capitalism and trade. Commercial practices. Dutch innovations in trade, joint stock companies, and banking provided a blueprint for other nations developing capitalist economies. The success of the Dutch East India Company influenced the creation of similar enterprises in Britain and other countries. Financial systems. The establishment of the Amsterdam Stock Exchange and modern banking practices in the Dutch Republic were emulated by other financial centers, laying the groundwork for global finance. 2. Urban development. Urban planning. Dutch expertise in urban planning, water management, and infrastructure development inspired other cities and regions. Techniques in land reclamation and canal construction were particularly influential. Cultural and intellectual inspiration. 1. Enlightenment thought. Freedom of expression. The relatively liberal climate of the Dutch Republic, which allowed for freedom of the press and intellectual exchange, attracted thinkers and writers from across Europe. This environment contributed to the spread of Enlightenment ideas. Scientific advancements. Dutch contributions to science and technology, such as advancements in optics by Antony van Leeuwenhoek and Christian Huygens, inspired further scientific inquiry and innovation in other countries. 2. Artistic influence. Golden Age art. The flourishing of Dutch art during the Golden Age, with artists like Rembrandt and Vermeer, influenced artistic styles and techniques across Europe. Dutch art emphasized realism, attention to detail, and the use of light, which inspired many other artists. Colonial and global influence. 1. Colonial administration. Colonial models. The Dutch approach to colonial administration and trade influenced other colonial powers, including the British and the French. The establishment of trading posts in colonies around the world showcased effective methods of economic exploitation and governance. Cultural exchange. Dutch colonies facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures between